I love that last quote. I was sitting there thinking, well, I don't have to look like I'm 20. I don't look like I'm 90, right? Like this is it's a new benchmark. So next up is Lauren Costantini. She's president and CEO of Prima-Temp. And her keynote is Wearable Sensors Expand Human Potential. And I was sitting back there thinking, what is human potential? And in the olden days in healthcare, human potential would have meant like how low is your BMI or how up to date are you on all your preventive screenings and what are your key health metrics. But I think increasingly as an industry, we're starting to think about the fact that life is health. Health is life, and when life goes wrong, health goes wrong. And I love a quote from Joanne this morning, Jenkins. She said, how as humans, like maybe we should be arguing that our human potential is to live our very, very best days. So I'm a little tired today because I didn't really start preparing for this, taking it seriously until last night, of course. And I was Googling Lauren in particular, and it's really her fault because I got so fascinated. I would encourage each of you to Google this woman. And I ended up getting sucked into things she's written, and she gave this incredible TEDx talk. And really what she talks about a lot is something I agree with, believe in very strongly, that we shouldn't be technology in search of a problem. What Lauren talks about is how can we be technology in service to the human? And here's a quote from her TEDx talk I loved. There's a shoe that Alzheimer's patients can wear that tracks the number of steps they take. And when they reach the outside of the perimeter of the home, an alert is sent to their caretaker, letting them know that they may be wandering a little bit too far away. So with this technology, we become better caretakers. And what I love about that is it cool that this person gets to see how many steps they took? Maybe. As somebody with Alzheimer's, is it extraordinary that maybe you can be kept more safe because we're tracking the number of steps relative to the perimeter of your home? Absolutely. But I think the person for whom this is most valuable is the caregiver, right? It's that mom who's trying to keep their job and remember to flirt every now and then with their partner and still be a good mother to their kids. And meanwhile, they're caring for their own mother or father who is wasting from Alzheimer's and stressing on a regular basis about them wandering. And I love that Lauren is celebrating the use of technology to help each of us with challenges like that, like real life challenges like being a caregiver, and celebrating how to use technology in service to that. So with no further ado, please join me in welcoming Lauren Costantini. Thank you. Enjoy. Our bodies are radiating data, constantly radiating data. And for the most part, we ignore those data unless something goes terribly wrong. We wake up one morning with a scratchy throat or an achy back, and it's not until then do we start paying attention to taking our vitamins or getting more rest. Or our doctor calls us and says, your cholesterol levels are through the roof. And it's not until then do we pay attention to the data that our bodies are radiating, and we start paying more attention to the food we eat and the exercise that we get. But now there are hundreds of gadgets and gizmos and sensors that can collect the data that our bodies have always been radiating and put those data in our hands so that we can analyze the data and make improvements in our health and our well-being, oftentimes without the need for a healthcare provider. This is a profoundly different model than any other time in healthcare history. And it's really based on wellness empowerment and patient empowerment, before you get sick and then after you get sick. But what might be possible for you to collect the data that your bodies have been radiating and make the most of your body and mind? So let's start with wellness empowerment. You're all familiar with these activity trackers, the Fitbit, the Nike Fuel, the Jawbone, some that are still on the market, some that are no longer on the market. But they really have been groundbreaking in allowing all of us to realize how we can collect and learn what our bodies are doing. But now we've got sensors that can help us with stress. Stress is now one of the #1 requirements for trackers in wearable sensors technology, ranging from something that you can just clip on your belt, all the way up to the headbands that you can wear to enhance your meditation. And all of these trackers
can help identify what makes you most anxious, what triggers your anxiety and your stress, and what can you do to reduce that stress. I like to think of this as quantified mindfulness. It's really allowing you to reduce the stress in your life that often can lead to some of healthcare's biggest challenges. In addition to stress, what about sleep? Sleep is now considered by the CDC as a public health epidemic, or the lack thereof sleep. And so now we have everything from a free app to an expensive wearable sensor that can tell you when you're having a good night's sleep, when you're not having a good night's sleep, and what are the triggers during the day and the evening that are causing a good versus a bad night's sleep. Also, sleep is sleep mindfulness. And getting more sleep can actually reduce many of healthcare's challenges as well. And with my training in neuroscience, I find these wearable sensors extremely powerful. The irony, though, is that we're now using technology to bring us back to mindfulness. Sensors are changing the way we live our lives, even though technology is probably what got us into this frenzied state where we're constantly stressed and losing sleep. But to come back full circle, technology is helping us get past that. Unfortunately, there are hundreds of sensors out there now. And so how do you choose which sensor is best for you? Well, there's a website called Willocracy, and this is actually a Partners Health product. I promise Joe did not pay me to say this. This is actually a website that I've gone to many times that have tables for each of the different types of apps out there. Sleep devices, healthcare devices, cardiac devices, and they can help compare and contrast the sensors to make sense of all these wearables that are consumer-based. So now moving on to patient empowerment, or as the buzzword is these days, the consumerization of healthcare. The bottom line with the consumerization of healthcare really is a disruption of the balance of knowledge between healthcare provider and the patient. In the US, 60% of smartphone owners are now using phones to manage their health. This is a very interesting Ketchum survey that just came out a few months ago. This is even in the face of privacy issues and potential hackers. Patients are craving to have a say in the data coming from their bodies and the conversations with their healthcare providers. And now we have products that can simply snap onto the back of your iPhone and can give you an ECG of your own heart health at home without even talking to a healthcare provider, and analyze those data for you to give you a full picture of your heart health. No other time in history has this been possible without the use of expensive medical and hospital equipment and large bills being sent to your house. So this is patient empowerment. Once there is a potential cardiac issue, you still have the power to collect the data that your body are radiating. Now, doctors, my question to you is, are you or aren't you recommending these sensors? There was a Nielsen survey just a few months ago that showed that on the right side, in red, 50% of physicians said they are recommending sensors to their patients to collect biometric information. But when that same question was asked to the patients on the left side in white, you'll see that only 4 to 5% of patients said, yeah, my doctors have talked to me about sensors. So why is there this gap? Either the physicians are being pretty subtle about their recommendations, or the patients are a little bit intimidated by what the physicians are saying to them. So there needs to be a push to develop approachable, intuitive technology with actionable outcomes. Actionable outcomes have been brought up several times today already. And now I'm able to talk a little bit about my company, Prima-Temp. We think that we've solved this problem with one particular healthcare indication. We've developed PRIA, a personal fertility sensor, helping women get pregnant, one of the most basic aspects of being human, and we're using a wearable sensor to help them get there. It's a wearable sensor that collects a woman's core body temperature, identifying those subtle changes that occur before ovulation, and then when she's most fertile, it sends an alert to her smartphone. The form factor is an intravaginal ring, identical to those rings that have been on the market for decades. You may be familiar with NuvaRing or S-Ring. These are drug delivery intravaginal rings that women have been wearing for 25 years. They insert the ring, it delivers drug for a month, and they take it out and put in another ring after a month. We've simply taken the medication out and put a continuous thermometer in. So she inserts our ring, wears it a month at a time, it transfers data to her smartphone, and when she's most fertile, it sends this message to her smartphone. And yes, it can send a message to her partner's smartphone as well. So talk about actionable outcomes. Once she receives this message, she takes one action if she's trying to get pregnant, or she avoids that action if she's trying not to get pregnant. And this is a very engaged population. Have you ever met a woman who was desperately trying to get pregnant? She's very engaged and motivated. And this really talks a little bit about a subset of patient empowerment, and that's women's empowerment. It's an interesting time to be a woman in history right now. But focusing on the global women's health product and market, it's scheduled to grow at almost 4% every year, and the global market for women's devices is forecast to reach almost $2.5 billion in the next few years. Part of this is to do with the fact that women are waiting longer and later in life to have babies. This is a very basic human essence that's changing the whole market of part of healthcare. It's also due to the fact that women are holding the purse strings to many of the family's healthcare decisions and money. And so women are demanding that the healthcare system pays attention to women's health. I was just asked by Inc. magazine earlier this month to write an article about the challenges of being in women's health and the fact that we have to surpass the stigma that women's health is a niche market and build a business that benefits half of the population. I've been in meetings talking about my technology before, and someone in the back of the room raises their hand and says, "But it's an intravaginal ring that only works in women." Well, that's half the population, and it's for women who are trying to get pregnant or are trying not to get pregnant. So women's health is a very interesting and important technology right now. Luckily, the important folks are paying attention to it. We now have pilot studies with both Aetna and Kaiser, and this is in addition to the fact that our product is a consumer-based product. These healthcare systems see how important it is to attract and retain women into their healthcare systems by offering interesting technology products. And so finally, personalized medicine. I've been hearing about personalized medicine since I was a wee lad in grad school, and it's always moved from genomics to proteomics, and now I believe that sensors are really going to accelerate personalized medicine. Our product, for an example, we've done the impossible. We've transmitted continuous core temperature through the body of a woman to a smartphone. And if you look at what the raw data are expressed, this is about 3 weeks worth of data from a woman, we're collecting circadian rhythm. That is the most personal physiologic parameter that each of you have. That's almost a fingerprint of your bodies. And so by using that information, we can not only affect fertility, but we can show early disease detection. Your circadian rhythm actually shifts slightly 2 days before you start showing symptoms of an infection. So if you're at home and you're starting to see your circadian rhythm changing, a notification can be sent to you saying that you may be getting the flu in the next couple days, you better start taking your vitamins. Or in the hospital, when a patient's circadian rhythm starts shifting, they're not showing a fever or symptoms yet, an alert can be sent to the nurse's station saying, this patient is in need of some treatment for potential hospital-acquired infection or sepsis. Cancer treatments. There are countless studies in the literature that show that if chemotherapy is administered based on your circadian rhythm, the outcomes are significantly improved and side effects are significantly reduced. But physicians have never had a way of capturing circadian rhythm before. So even with cancer treatment, a sensor that simply collects continuous vital sign monitors can improve these treatments. There's other personalized aspects of wearable sensors. You're probably familiar with all of the diabetes products now. This is the Dexcam that is able to identify a person's very personal blood glucose levels and change the way that they're receiving their treatment. And this product is interesting in that it's also for children. So the whole spectrum of patients can now be monitored and personalized using these types of wearable sensors, accelerating this field significantly. So whether a sensor is inserted, like our ring, or implanted or ingested, like the protease technology, or worn, like the glucose sensing contact lens, sensors can really identify the most individual biologic parameters for personalized medicine. So what's next? We all have our own opinions of what can we do to get to Health 3.0. I'll just give you my top 3 opinions. Number 1, we have to de-silo the data. The medical industry is known for collecting so much information, but it's often siloed by hospital, doctor's office, administrators. So how should we get a big picture of one particular patient, as well as a big picture of a patient population? IBM Watson and many other big data and machine learning predictive algorithms are being developed, but as long as these data are scattered all over, we're not really going to get that big picture. Patient information is not even shared across providers right now. Look in the middle right here. 49% of physicians with EMRs are allowed to share their records electronically with clinicians outside their practice. So even for that one patient, they have data sitting in all aspects of the healthcare system, as well as their own personal wellness sensors. The good news is de-siloing the data is starting to happen. Here's a couple of examples. 3M and Verily Life Sciences are collaborating for a population data management aggregation process. This was just announced a few months ago, or actually this month. And then IBM and Apple have been collaborating for many years, and now they're focusing specifically on ResearchKit and HealthKit to consolidate all of this data. So bringing the healthcare folks and the technology folks together is really what's needed to bring these data together. Second, evidence-based data. Again, we've got technology folks coming into our healthcare world. Those of us who have been in healthcare for years know that we practice medicine based on evidence-based data. We have clinical studies, we're controlled, we have rigorous data analysis, there's statistics involved. The technology folks have never really needed to do this before. I mean, Uber app never had to show in the Journal of New England Medicine that this actually did what it said it would. But with healthcare and wearable sensors to be used in the healthcare system, companies like Evidation are now running very rigorous studies using these technologies in order to provide evidence-based medicine. And it's starting to happen. I almost fell off my chair the other day when I saw the Journal of the American Medical Association publish a paper on the Apple Watch. And the Apple Watch was compared to Fitbit, Basis, and a couple of other heart rate monitors to identify which was actually showing the best data, the most consistent, the most accurate, and Journal of the American Medical Association published these data. So this is exactly what's needed in the field, bringing these tech companies into our scientific, rigorous, evidence-based data. And finally, collaboration is key. All of these sensors are using very specific technology, electronics and apps and management of these big data, but it's also using physiology and healthcare, the regulatory aspect with FDA, the compliance aspects with FCC, and so all of these groups have to be sitting at the same table. And it's starting to happen, and this is what gets me most excited about the field. This is just a smattering of some of the collaborations. Sanofi and Google, Google and GlaxoSmithKline, Apple, Nokia, Jawbone, Mattel, all of these consumer-based companies are now coming together with the healthcare companies, sitting at the same table, visiting with the FDA, recruiting some of the top healthcare executives to these technology companies. But this is exactly what's needed to move this field forward as quickly as it is. But vision with these collaborations is essential. Couple of examples, intellectual property and competition. Most of the tech companies out there, they talk about open source and data sharing, but the healthcare companies are all about patents and trade secrets. And so for these collaborations to make sense, there has to be some flexibility on both sides of the table when it comes to intellectual property. We've run into that in our own company. And competition, there's tension between collaboration and competition. And one example of that is the Philips-Qualcomm collaboration that recently has come about. Philips has typically had a closed system where their data are staying within their Philips network. But now, working with Qualcomm, there's going to be some sharing of data to a level. And Jim Mald said it perfectly. He said, the last thing a payer like United wants is 10 different one-off solutions that don't interoperate or have nothing to do with each other. Or the OnDuo collaboration between Sanofi and Verily. Jared Jocelyn said, OnDuo can be selling a Lilly insulin or a Novartis one, but it's got to be about the customer. So this competition among one's own healthcare system has to be a bit flexible for these collaborations to work. So in closing, your body has been radiating data since the beginning of time, and the data are now in your hands. How will you make a better version of yourself? Thank you.